Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting episode. Tack on Productions, Fluff here. Today I'm coming at you with the final Topo build. The last week this last week you all saw the kind of slug variant. I decided to take that apart. Wasn't really working for me. It had a lot of weird plays that I just couldn't shore up in my head, and I couldn't find a great way to smooth it out. It had a lot of odd tempo placements where it was trying to play. I promise I will put a profile up, but I'm not going to make a video unless people really, really want me to. But this is kind of the final iteration of Slug. This is the most consistent build that I found so far. It's incredibly good. I would consider this more of like the streamlined Topo deck. So the leader front side, draw when you're at 4 or less, or you have a unison specified 2, you get to flip it over. He does have the floodgate while you have a unison specified 2 on field. That's the important thing, but he will get us a draw every turn. So very similar to Hatchiyak, but where Hatchiyak lets your opponent play as many cards as they want. They can only attack once. This only lets your opponent play once, which naturally kind of has the tendency to flood how many times they can attack early. As I've been consistent with, best yellow unison for Topo is still Vegeta Unison of Fury. We're mainly using this because it keeps your opponent from attacking with big energy cards. So if they're playing in a rival deck or something that just cheats out low cost or high cost cards, this will just keep them from doing it. So thinking about Brawly BR, like the new Brawly swap chain, they can only, like on turn 3, the turn that they can go up to their 6, they can't attack with their 4, 5, or 6. And they can only play 1 card per turn, which really slows them down. Then on the -3 effect, we're able to put a lot of pressure on with that dual attack double strike 20,000. And honestly, like, we can close out games with this if we time it correctly, but I love this unison. I don't think this unison gets enough love in the game. So 4 of those for sure. And then as kind of insurance policies for the end of the game, we do run 2 of the Mecha Kabura. Mainly we're after this for the -4 effect, where you get to take one of your opponent's battle cards and switch it to active mode. But more importantly, on the +1, you get to draw 1 card, choose one of your opponent's battle cards in rest mode, ignoring barrier. That card can't be switched back to active mode. So even if you need to just buy yourself some time and they've got a big threat like Vegeta on board, or maybe the 6-drop Brawly, or a big slug or something, you can use this if you don't want to take it and just +1, buy yourself another turn. And this guy's also blocker. He rest modes a card when he loses a marker, so that's optional. But mainly we're going for that -4 effect. So 2 of those. Moving into the actual battle cards, we do play 3 of the Basil, Fatal Rampage. Draw 1 and pressure if your opponent has a lot of shit rested. So card's good, you can only have 1 at a time, so be careful of that. Then I do run 3 of Chappelle the Iron Drake. This could easily be 4, though I saw that 4 wasn't exactly helping us out a ton. I ended up charging them, and if I could just see them in hand less, that's optimal, because we want to play these off of Unite Assemble. But again, we like these on the field. They become a target for battle card or unison swings, and if they attack before they tap all their energy, he gets to tap down an energy, which is really, really good, and throws your opponent off their tempo. Following this up after your leader awaken with the unison on field, like if you can Unite Assemble on this guy, it throws your opponent off kilter so much. So 3 of those. Then for the draw power, we are playing 2 of the Draw Apes. So there are turns where we may not have a great amount to do with our energy. There are games where we may not want to play these because we need our energy for defense. But the important part is that it's combo plus additional draws for us if we need them. So 2 of those. Then I run 3 of the Vegeta Prideful Transformation. This could be 4, but we don't have a lot of room in this deck to play cards on our opponent's turn. Like, that's actually when we want to play a majority of our cards, is during our opponent's turn. So this just kind of gets in the way of that. So this might be something that really counters a threat that's boarding up that we can't stop any other way. This will just rest mode that and buy us down the turn, plus it's a blocker, so it kind of negates for us as well, or becomes a target for the opponent to remove. So 3 of those, 4 clogged up a lot and didn't really work. Then, best super combo in the game, Zama's Sacred Disbelief. This guy's pretty much a negate. If your opponent swings with the battle card and you've got this guy in hand, feel free to plop this down on the board. Their leader goes into rest mode and they don't get the big pluses on it. Or vice versa, if they have a big nasty battle card on field and they swing with their leader, you can use this to rest mode the battle card and not worry about anything. But this is one of our free ways to rest stuff. This plus Chappelle, plus most of the deck really will rest and turn on other effects in the deck for us. So 4 of these, the deck draws enough that you don't need draw super combos. They're not really relevant. Then we do play 3 of the Grade 8 Bardock Raiders Warcry. I've been back and forth on this card. The big thing with this card is on turn 1, we can, after we awaken, we can swing if we don't have like a Unison symbol and board this, hopefully before our Unison has the ability to counterplay them. And then we just have a card that is going to apply pressure, might rest mode something, get us a draw. The later the game goes, the worse these guys get. So in late turns, these guys are really easy to charge. But if you find yourself in a place where you're able to deal with the Unison and your opponent probably doesn't have a more readily available counterplay, these can provide nice endgame pressure. So 3 of those. Then we are playing 3 of the Bergamo Ferocious Roar. This again is another one that I've gone back and forth on. I was actually talking to a friend who kind of was like, dude, like you rest mode so much, why not like passively play one of your turns, keep open a couple energy for defense, but then use this thing to, you know, tap down your opponent's energy, especially if they're trying to save energy for your crackback the next turn. And I was like, geez, that's a really good effect. So I went back up to 3 on these guys. They're not always live and they're not always relevant because sometimes you will just play against people who don't like to leave their energy open, or you've had to use your counterplay or a Bardock and these just aren't live. But do love these guys. The big thing that's kind of bad about them is they're just a 20,000 while they're on the field. It's not a lot of pressure, really, but being able to tap down the energy right before the turn that I'm going into my kill turn is huge. So it will force my opponent into using sparking negates or free negates off the Unison. Then kind of one of our game closers is Bergamo Lupine Predator. This guy is really good if all my opponent's energy is rested, say off of the Bergamo. Then he becomes a 4 cost to play. So on 4 energy, he can play. He'll tap down all battle cards. They can't restand during the next standby phase for my opponent. And then he's a triple attack 25,000. So this can be a good way to like beat a Unison down, clear the field, or make my opponent combo in heavy before I resolve the Vegeta Unison's -3. So being able to combo both of these on one turn is oftentimes a ton of pressure and will cause my opponent to do a lot. The big get around for this is if green has something like, I don't know, dormant potential would stop that. But if they did dormant potential after I played this, I've at least bought myself a turn. So these are really good. When I've played these, I've usually won that turn or the turn directly after. Moving into the non-yellow engine of the deck, we do run 2 of the Poutine, the Dark Sorcerer. A lot of people have been suggesting these. I've been really back and forth on them, but it makes a lot of sense. If we can board a Poutine early, it gives us board presence, it gives us a combo, but then it also lets us rest mode a battle card every turn pretty much. So whenever your opponent would play a battle card using a skill or activate a counter skill, we get to rest mode a battle card. So if your opponent has a blocker on field and you swing, they counter, you rest mode the blocker. If your opponent plays a card like Swap with Brawly, you get to rest mode that card and they don't get to swing with it and apply the pressure. So we are playing 2 of these just to kind of mitigate the opponent's thing. AOD plays a lot of cards via skills. Swap plays a lot of cards via skills. So this just slows everything down. And say you're able to get that tap and you have 2 energy open, you can follow it up with Bergamo and tap down 2 energy and it just shuts their turn down. So 2 of those. Then for more field removal, because one thing that Toppo really hates is having a large field. We do play 2 of the Secret Identity Mask Sand. These are basically going to be used to clear out the field. So these are really good against Hit Pod for when your opponent gets a couple of those 2-drop Piccolo Juniors you saw in one of my last games. It's really good for shoring up the game with AOD. It can literally be the difference between your living and dying. If they're able to get rid of your Unison, you can clear out a couple of their cards, and they can't counterplay this very easily. So 2 of those because we do like the board removal, and yellow doesn't do it good enough on its own. Then last battle card is 1 Furthering Destruction Champa. This is just in case I need to try to get in on a unison or try to sneak in like a quick win. If I swing with Basil, opponent doesn't negate, I can just play this and it gains double strike for the duration of the battle. So it'll make a 29,000 double strike that my opponent would have to combo out heavy or potentially lose the game. Or if I put this on the Bergamo Lupine Predator, it becomes a 35,000 triple strike double attack. Or triple attack double strike, rather. So always a good idea to have one. You could cut this for another Poutine or any other yellow card that you want to play. But it's good at a 1 of. Then moving on to our extra cards, which we do play a lot. I'm running 3 of the Universe 9 Assemble. I've been running 4 on these. One of the big problems, this deck, like a lot of Arrival decks, really struggles with combo power. So I wanted to minimize. I would end up with situations where I had like 3 or 4 of these in hand, or 2 or 3, and I would just be getting them on my precious draws, and I wouldn't be able to use them because I needed the energy for defense, or I needed the energy to play a battle card, or I needed the energy to play a unison. So these were just clogging my hand a lot. So I decided to bring it down. The important bit is that we see 1 around turn 2, and then after that, we might want to see 1 more at some point during the game to maybe board a Basil or a Chappelle. But we don't want these guys clogging up. So we do run 3. Then I do run 3 Spirit Fists. These are kind of weird as counter plays. They do choose the card that's being played, so they don't get past barrier. So they get hit by barrier and deflect. But we're more using them for that activate battle to bump that Vegeta up. So if we can play 3 of these on 1 Vegeta, he becomes a 50,000 double strike dual attack for the turn, which is a ton of pressure to get over for your opponent. These are just versatile. If your opponent's playing a problematic battle card, you can counterplay with it. These could absolutely be like 2 Spirit Fist, 1 Giant Ball, or 1 Crusher Ball, whatever you wanted. But having a couple Spirit Fists on the turn that you want to try to end the game is never a bad idea, and it's never out of the question in this deck. So we do run 3 of those. Then I run 4 Cocotte Zone. I want to thank Larry. Larry did it again. I had completely forgotten that Toppo was a Universe 11 leader. I'm kind of a noob when it comes to that, I guess, apparently, considering this is my deck and I hadn't noticed that. But Cocotte Zone is basically like having a 4th set of super combos. You can negate, rest mode another battle card. The only difference is this can't rest leaders or unisons. So if they only have 1 battle card on the field, if they swing with the battle card first, you super combo. If they swing with the leader first, you Cocotte Zone. Basically, that's it. It just slows down the pressure that they can put on you. Then we do play 2 Flying Nimbus for those decks that like to go crazy thick on you, that like to go all crazy sauce and go wide on the field. So 2 of those, these are getting worse and worse as unisons get better and better. So Bandai, please, we need an updated Nimbus. Please, you rebooted Brawly's Ring. Please reboot Nimbus. Then we play 3 Vegeta's Final Flash. These are really good for baiting the opponent into what they perceive to be a killing turn and swinging with a triple strike while you have 3, using a Vegeta's Final Flash after they combo up, and then they only deal 1 damage and feel really bad about themselves. Or you can use this to negate problematic skills like trying to get rid of the Vegeta 6 or the Gogeta 6 or a number of different cards that you want to get rid of. These are good for helping to remove Gotenks if you need to. So you can swing, pop this on a Gotenks, unison up, or overwhelm, blow up the Gotenks, they don't get the recovery. So 3 of those. And finally, because I also forgot that this was a card and love it in testing, is the Dark Dragon Balls. So these are going to be great if you're playing a deck that wants to go really big and wide on you. You could play the Shenron Secret Rare instead of this. The problem with the Shenron Secret Rare is that if your opponent out-combos that, it just dies. And then you're kind of in a bad spot because then you don't have any defenses. Whereas if you've got this and you pair it with something like Flying Nimbus, or you're able to throttle their attacks, they just lose their field. And for a lot of decks, losing the entire field loses their entire momentum. So 1 of those because it's good. In certain games, it's not relevant and you don't need it. You know, don't give up your precious board if your opponent's not going super big and wide, that's beyond manageable for you. But in situations against stuff like AOD, hit pod, skillless, things that are going to go super wide, this is going to be your best friend. So we've got those, and that by my count is 50 cards. This is Toppo Lock. Toppo Lock's by and large my favorite deck in the game. If you haven't played it, I know a few of you all have, but if you haven't played Toppo Lock, give it a chance. And you can build it a number of different ways. Like oftentimes it's like generic good yellow, but you can play it with a slug engine. You can play with a really concentrated U9 engine. Hell, you can even play it with a Gotenks engine, where you're playing like 3 of the fusion pieces and lay it in on that. I'm always down to talk Toppo Lock if you want to send us a message or leave us a comment. I know Larry and I have been talking about a couple things, and I'm sure Bancroft and everyone around here is tired of me talking about this deck. So I think I'm going to retire it after this weekend. Probably be the last time that I play it for a little while. So you guys show some Toppo Lock some love. Leave us a like. Leave us a comment. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button. Do that thing. And as always, make sure to read your cards, know your plays. Fluff out.